Let me tell you something unsettling, something you probably didn't expect to hear in a sleep video, a bedtime story, or a calm ancient history documentary where people expect rain sounds for sleep and quiet voices whispering in the year 2000 BC. No. Tonight, we're going somewhere deeper, stranger, and honestly, a little uncomfortable. Because the truth is this: what ancient people did behind closed doors makes modern times look innocent. And I'm not joking. If you think you've heard weird history facts before, if you think ancient history is boring, if you think this is the kind of boring history for sleep you'll forget in 5 minutes, oh no, not tonight. Because tonight, we're going to explore what sex was really like in ancient civilizations. Not the filtered school version, not the soft History Channel version, but the real human story that people used to whisper about in the dark. And you'll see something surprising. We are not as modern as we think, and they were not as primitive as we imagine. Some cultures saw sex as holy, some saw it as a duty, some saw it as a weapon, some saw it as power, some saw it as entertainment, some saw it as a pathway to the gods. And some went so far that modern society would scream, impossible. But it's history, and history doesn't care how uncomfortable we feel about it. So before we begin, let me ask you, are you ready to hear the things ancient people never wanted carved into stone? Are you ready to step into the temples, the palaces, the desert kingdoms, the forgotten streets of Rome, Egypt, Babylon, and India? If yes, then let's go. And don't worry, this is a bedtime story. You're safe. You're learning history while you sleep. The rain sounds are in your imagination. Just breathe, relax, because tonight we're traveling back thousands of years to a world where sex wasn't private, it wasn't hidden, and it definitely wasn't simple. Now, you probably think you know a little bit about ancient sexuality. Romans did crazy stuff. Greeks loved beauty and philosophy. Egyptians had eyeliner and pyramids. India had the Kamasutra. Mesopotamia had temples. Ancient civilizations had strange customs. But here's the truth. Everything you think you know is only 1% of the real story. Because ancient sexuality wasn't about pleasure the way we imagine it today. It wasn't about romance. It wasn't about dating. It was about power, class, gender, control, fertility, the gods, status, punishment, social order, and sometimes survival. And the more we explore, the more bizarre it becomes. So if you came here expecting a calm history lesson to help you fall asleep fast, surprise, you're getting that and more. We are doing history for sleep, but with just enough shock to keep your brain curious. Let's begin this bedtime story. The most sexual civilization you never expected. Let's start with a question. Which ancient culture was the most sexual? Rome, Greece, India, Egypt? Good guesses. But no. The answer is Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization itself. Yes, the very place that invented writing, cities, math, and the first legal codes, was also obsessed with sexuality in a way that surprises even historians. Sex wasn't just sex there. It was ritual, prayer, contract, healing, purification, diplomacy, and sometimes a sacred duty. Imagine living in a world where your body was not just your own. It was a tool to communicate with the gods. And this leads us to one of the strangest practices in human history. The temple, where no woman could refuse Babylon. Let me tell you a story about Babylon, one of the oldest and most famous cities ever. Thousands of years ago, Herodotus, the Greek historian, wrote something shocking, something people still argue about today. He said that in Babylon, every woman, rich or poor, had to visit the temple of Melita, Aphrodite, at least once in her life, and sleep with a stranger as a sacred duty. Pause. Take a breath. Imagine hearing that as a modern person. It sounds unbelievable. But in ancient Mesopotamia, they saw it differently. To them, it wasn't shameful, it wasn't immoral, it wasn't strange, it wasn't dirty. It was holy. The idea was simple. Sex equals fertility. Fertility equals blessing. Blessing equals the gods smiling at your city. So when a woman entered the temple, she sat and waited. A man, any man, would approach, place money in her lap, whisper the name of a goddess, and the act would be considered sacred. After that, she was free. She had fulfilled her cosmic duty, sleep video or not. That's a lot to think about. If that was the normal thing, what about the things they tried to hide? We'll get there. But let's travel to a more famous place. Egypt. The land where sex was natural, and sometimes royal. Egypt. The land of pyramids, gold, Nile River, and gods with animal heads. But also the land where sex was seen as normal, natural, human. Egyptians were one of the least judgmental people when it came to sexuality. They had no word for virgin, no stigma around premarital sex. Divorce was easy. Women had strong rights. Men and women could both initiate love. In fact, Egyptian love poems are some of the sweetest ever found. Gentle, romantic, soft. But then there's the part that shocks people today. Royal incest. Yes, but not because they loved it, not because they were wild, not because they were strange. They did it because they believed their kings were gods, and gods married within the family. Osiris married Isis, so pharaohs married sisters. This is why King Tutankhamun had health issues. His parents were siblings. But here's the twist. Common Egyptians didn't do this. They actually frowned on it. It was only for the royal bloodline, to keep the gods pure. Strange? Yes, but logical in their world. And here's another twist. Egyptian priests had a ritual where they would swallow their own semen as a symbolic act of returning life to the universe, a belief connected to the Milky Way. That's one of those weird history facts that makes you pause mid-bedtime story and whisper, "Wait, what?" This is ancient history, not the rooftop, not the filtered version. Greece and Rome, sex is power, not pleasure. Now let's move to the civilizations people think they know best. Ancient Greece, ancient Rome, philosophers, warriors, democracy, gladiators, temples, statues, but also a whole different way of thinking about sex. In the Greco-Roman world, sex was all about power, not love, not gender, not even attraction. It was about who is the dominant one, who is the active one, who is in control. A free adult male could sleep with women, men, slaves, prostitutes, concubines, as long as he was the one doing the action. But if a man allowed himself to be the passive one, society judged him as weak, unmanly, and inferior, no matter his orientation. To them, it wasn't about gay or straight. These labels didn't even exist. It was about status. This explains why ancient love stories like Hadrian and Antinous were complicated, not because of gender, but because of power, class, and expectations. But let me give you something even stranger. Romans had a legal punishment for adultery that involved a radish, a big one. I'll let your imagination rest for a moment. This is still a sleep video after all. But yes, it was a humiliating but symbolic punishment. The point wasn't injury, the point was power, just like everything else in Roman sexuality. And that brings me to a question. If you lived in Rome as a man, would you care more about who you loved or who society said you should dominate? Strange world, right? And we're only scratching the surface. What if we told you the most shocking part is still ahead? Listen closely. Everything you've heard so far, Babylon, Egypt, Greece, Rome, is interesting, surprising, maybe even a little wild. But the truly shocking parts, we haven't even started them yet, because next we'll enter India's erotic temples, the Kamasutra's misunderstood teachings, the oldest depiction of sex ever discovered, strange medical beliefs about wandering wombs, erotic vegetables, yes, really. Gladiator love stories, gods who demanded intimacy, and ancient fears that will make you rethink everything you know. If you're still awake, stay with me. If you're drifting off, let this bedtime story carry you deeper into history for sleep. But don't go yet. The next chapter is where things get really bizarre. Before we continue into the next wild chapter, do one thing for me. Like this video. Subscribe if you love weird history. Comment, ancient history for sleep. so YouTube knows to send you more. Share this with someone who loves strange facts. Meanwhile, in India, where sex was an art, a spiritual practice, and a science. Let's travel to ancient India, a place many people think they understand because of one word, Kamasutra. But here's the truth. The Kamasutra is not a sex manual. It's not a bedroom guide. It's not some ancient version of modern romance. It is a philosophy, a textbook, a life manual that includes relationships, emotional connection, attraction, ethics, communication, psychology, and yes, a section about physical intimacy. Only one small part of it deals with sexual techniques. The rest is about how to live as a cultured, emotionally intelligent human. But we'll come back to that. First, let's talk about something far more surprising. The temples that shock everyone who sees them for the first time. In the heart of India stand the Khajuraho temples, ancient stone masterpieces built between 950 and 1050 CE, and carved into their walls is a world of images most people wouldn't expect on holy buildings. People often ask, why would religious temples show such intimate carvings? But the truth is beautiful. The temples weren't built to shock, they were built to teach, to remind people that desire is natural, love is sacred, bodies are divine, pleasure is not sinful, intimacy is part of creation, and life itself requires balance. These temples show couples, marriages, affection, spiritual bonding, fertility rituals, and symbolic union. And yes, some carvings show erotic positions, but again, the ancient minds saw this differently. They saw sexuality as a celebration of life, not shame, not guilt, not taboo, just a natural human experience. Imagine walking through these temples with the warm Indian sun on your skin, the stone cool beneath your fingertips, and thousands of years of history whispering, your body is not an enemy, your desire is not a curse, your spirit is not separate from your flesh. That was ancient India. A world where mutual pleasure was expected, not hidden. Where marriage wasn't the end of desire, it was its home. Where women had more rights to happiness than many societies gave them centuries later. And here's something interesting. Ancient Indian texts describe sex as a duty for both partners. A man had responsibilities. A woman had responsibilities. Pleasure was shared. Effort was shared. Connection was shared. This was centuries before modern conversations about equality. It's amazing how ancient people can sometimes feel more modern than the present. The oldest lovers in human history. Now let's step even further back in time. Beyond temples, beyond civilizations, beyond writing. Back to a time when humans lived in caves. A time before history even had a name. In those ancient caves near Bethlehem, something remarkable was found. The Ansakri lovers. An 11,000-year-old sculpture. Imagine that. 11,000 years ago, before pyramids, before Babylon, before Rome, before India's great empires. Two humans carved a small figure showing a couple embracing. It is the oldest known depiction of intimacy in the world. Think about that for a moment. Before cities, before kings, before temples, people still loved. They still held each other. They still connected. This tiny sculpture tells a huge story. Humans have always reached for each other. Always. Even in caves. Even in the dark. Even when life was about survival. The sculpture is simple. Rounded shapes intertwined. No faces, no detail, just emotion. It proves something powerful. Sexuality is older than history. Love is older than writing. Connection is older than civilization. And yet, each culture shaped these instincts in its own strange, surprising way. Greek medicine and the wandering womb. Now let's return to ancient Greece, but not to philosophy, war, or mythology. Let's return to something much stranger, a medical belief so bizarre you'll think I'm making it up. The Greeks believed a woman's womb could move around inside her body. Yes, they thought the uterus could wander around, climb up to the chest, hide near the liver, or float around like a little lost creature. When the womb wandered, Greek doctors believed it caused anxiety, fainting, shortness of breath, confusion, emotional distress. They called it hysteria. Sound familiar? Yes. That word still exists today, although we've long abandoned the ancient explanation. To fix a wandering womb, Greek doctors recommended strong smells, loud noises, specific herbs, warm compresses, calming rituals. And here's the strangest part. They believed good intimacy in a stable marriage helped keep the womb happy. It's a strange connection, but it reminds us how ancient people saw sex as not just physical, but medical, emotional, and spiritual. Their views may sound strange, but remember, every generation believes things the next generation will laugh at. Maybe one day, in the distant future, people will look back on our beliefs and say, wow, they had no idea. History is humbling that way. Lettuce, olive oil, and the god of erections. Let's move back to Egypt, but with a much lighter tone. Did you know? Egyptians believed lettuce was an aphrodisiac. To them, lettuce wasn't a salad vegetable. It was a symbol of strength and fertility. The god Min, a major fertility deity, was linked to lettuce. At festivals, people served lettuce to honor him. Think about that next time you buy salad at the market. Meanwhile, the Greeks believed the exact opposite. They thought lettuce weakened desire instantly. One vegetable, two civilizations, two opposite beliefs. And if you're wondering which one was right, well, the world may never know. But here's another ancient belief, one that truly crosses cultures. Olive oil was the ancient world's universal enhancer. Applied topically, consumed, mixed with herbs. Greeks and Romans believed it increased pleasure, health, and energy. Even gladiators used special oils before combat because they believed it strengthened them. It's funny how something as simple as oil or lettuce could become the center of entire belief systems. That's the magic of history. Ordinary things become symbols. Everyday items become sacred. Gladiators, the unexpected sex symbols of ancient Rome. Now let's step into the roaring Roman arena. Dust rising, crowds screaming, swords clashing. Gladiators, the celebrities of their time. 3 out of 4 gladiators were slaves, forced into battle. You'd think they'd have no romantic lives, no admiration, no freedom to love. But surprisingly, gladiators had massive fan bases. In Pompeii, graffiti on the walls reveals women writing love notes to their favorite fighters, confessions of desire, hearts carved next to gladiator names, fan messages like, Celadus the Thracian is the heartthrob of the girls. Yes, ancient fangirling existed. And some gladiators even became involved with noblewomen, causing scandals across Rome. But then there were the stories of rulers, the emperors who took things much further. Take Emperor Commodus. He wasn't content with being an emperor. He wanted to be a gladiator. He fought in the arena, but cheated. He killed animals from a safe distance. He performed mock battles. And his private life? Let's just say he tried to match, or exceed, the outrageous behaviors of every ruler before him. Rome was a world where power, sexuality, and public spectacle blended into a single chaotic mix. And gladiators, they were at the center of it all. Polysexuality, the ancient way of life. Here's something that surprises many people. Most ancient societies saw sexuality as fluid, not fixed, not rigid, not strictly defined. Greeks wrote poems about both men and women. Romans had relationships across genders and classes. Mesopotamians had rituals that involved symbolic unions. India celebrated love in all its forms in art and literature. Egypt didn't have strict taboos about desire. Ancient people didn't categorize themselves the way modern society does. They asked one question: are you fulfilling your role in society? Not, what's your label? What's your category? Who do you prefer? They saw love and desire as natural parts of human life. It's strange. The past was both stricter and more flexible than today. Strict about roles, flexible about feelings, a contradiction, but a fascinating one. A love story worth pausing for. Before we end this part, let me tell you a beautiful story. A story of love, loss, grief, devotion and immortality, the story of Emperor Hadrian and Antinous. Hadrian was one of Rome's greatest emperors, wise, powerful, philosophical, but one day he met someone, Antinous, a young man from Bithynia, and their bond became legendary. They traveled together, laughed together, explored the empire together, and then, in Egypt, Antinous disappeared in the Nile. Historians still don't know whether it was accident, sacrifice, tragedy, or mystery. Hadrian was destroyed, utterly broken. In his grief, he did something no emperor had ever done. He made Antinous a god. He built statues of him everywhere, founded a city in his name, created a cult dedicated to his memory, turned his lover into something eternal. Museums today are filled with stone faces of Antinous, beautiful, calm, eternal, because one man loved him so deeply, he refused to let the world forget. Love leaves marks, even across centuries, and in a story filled with strange customs and shocking practices. This one reminds us of something simple and human. Love has always been powerful, always been unpredictable, always been capable of moving empires. When sex was a weapon, the power games of ancient Rome. We've talked about love, we've talked about ritual, we've talked about temple duty, cosmic duty, and the divine side of intimacy. But now, we must talk about power, because in ancient Rome, sex wasn't just about connection. It wasn't just about emotion. It wasn't even about pleasure. It was about dominance. Rome was a world built on hierarchy. Citizen above foreigner, master above slave, freeborn above freed, men above women, elders above youth, conquerors above conquered. And this hierarchy extended into private life. If you were Roman, the question wasn't, who do you love? It was, who do you dominate? A disturbing idea for the modern world, but a central one for Rome. In their minds, to be the active partner showed strength. To be the passive partner showed weakness. And this belief shaped everything, even punishment. Imagine breaking the law and facing a judge. In modern times, you get fines or prison. In Rome, your punishment could involve public humiliation, symbolic acts, not graphic ones, designed to reduce your status. Even the bizarre radish punishment we mentioned earlier wasn't about pain. It was about honor. It was Rome screaming, you forgot your place. Strange, right? How a vegetable could hold so much symbolic weight. This is the bizarre beauty of ancient history. Things we ignore today were once the center of entire moral systems. Honor and shame, the silent laws that controlled intimacy. Let's step deeper into this idea of status and honor, because it existed far beyond Rome. In the ancient world, sexual norms were less about religion or morality, and more about social order. Honor protected families, shame destroyed reputations, bloodlines were everything. Imagine living in a world where your family name determined your future, your marriage was a political tool, your children carried the weight of your ancestors, your worth was measured by your reputation. In such a world, intimacy became a public concern, not a private one. People believed your personal actions affect your whole family. So if a woman married into a powerful household, her loyalty wasn't just emotional, it was political. If a man held a public office, his household behavior reflected on his career. If a king ruled an empire, his domestic decisions were seen as omens. This is why ancient societies obsessed over marital agreements, fertility, heirs, lineage, inheritance, legitimacy. It wasn't about desire, it was about legacy. Babylon, where love and the gods intertwine. Let's return to Babylon, the city of hanging gardens, giant walls, and rivers that shimmered under the desert sun. We already talked about the controversial temple ritual, but Babylonian sexual culture runs deeper, stranger, and more symbolic than that single practice. To the Babylonians, sexual union was a reflection of cosmic order. It mirrored the union between gods and goddesses, sky and earth, creation and life. In Babylonian mythology, the god Marduk shaped the world from chaos. The goddess Ishtar represented love, war, and desire. The universe itself was born from a divine union, so humans in their minds mirrored the heavens. When you understand this, the temple ritual makes more sense, not morally, but culturally. To them, it wasn't immoral, it wasn't wild, it wasn't shameful, it was symbolic. A reenactment of the universe's creation. A way to maintain cosmic harmony. A ritual of renewal. Strange? Yes. But that's ancient civilization. Humans trying to understand the cosmos through the only language they had. Their bodies, their myths, their rituals. Ancient Arabia and the culture of modesty and power. Let's shift regions again. Ancient Arabia, before Islam, had its own complex sexual norms. Desire existed, of course. Poetry was full of it. Songs were full of it. Stories were full of it. Arabian poets wrote passionately about love, longing, temptation, heartbreak, and irresistible beauty. But this was also a society built on tribal loyalty, honor, strict codes of hospitality, deep respect for lineage, the importance of reputation. Modesty was deeply valued, and any scandal could erupt into tribal conflict. So intimacy had to be handled carefully, quietly, respectfully. It was a world where private passion existed, but public restraint was required. This is the interesting part. Some ancient cultures treated passion as holy. Some treated it as natural. Some treated it as political. Some treated it as dangerous. Arabia did something unique. It celebrated desire artistically, but controlled it socially. A balance between fire and discipline. You see this in ancient poetry. Some of the most beautiful, longing verses in history. Hebrew traditions, between devotion and humanity. Ancient Hebrew culture forms one of the world's most influential moral systems, shaping Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And contrary to what many think, the ancient Hebrew world wasn't anti-sex. In fact, it valued marital intimacy, emotional closeness, affection, companionship, partnership. The Song of Songs, one of the most poetic books in the Bible, is filled with admiration, longing, metaphors of beauty, romantic language, the celebration of emotional intimacy. But Hebrew culture was strict in other ways. Protecting lineage, preserving family honor, regulating relationships, preventing disputes, maintaining social order. Intimacy wasn't just physical. It was a covenant, a promise, a sacred contract. This made marriage extremely important, not only spiritually, but socially. It also meant that breaking that trust was treated seriously, not because of desire, but because of community stability. Another interesting layer of ancient complexity. The anatomical mysteries of antiquity. Earlier, we touched on the bizarre Greek idea of the wandering womb, but the ancient world was full of unusual, imaginative medical theories about the human body. Let me take you through a few. The body as a map of the universe. Egyptians believed the human body mirrored the stars. Organs weren't just organs, they were symbols of cosmic forces. The heart was the center of thought. The liver stored emotions. The womb, for women, was connected to creation itself. They shaved their entire bodies for purity in temple rituals, believing hair held spiritual energy. This wasn't about science. It was about symbolism. Greek anatomy without dissection. The Greeks were obsessed with knowledge, but they refused to dissect humans, so everything they knew was guesswork. That's how strange ideas formed. Arteries carried air, not blood. The brain was a cooling system. The womb was a living creature. Bodily fluids defined personality. It sounds funny now, but back then it was advanced. Every generation thinks it knows everything. Then the next generation says, "How did you even believe that?" History is humbling. Roman dental hygiene, and the kissing problem. Here's a weird one. Romans from certain regions brushed their teeth with urine, believing it whitened teeth. When this became widely known, public kissing faded out among the elite. Suddenly, it wasn't romantic. It was suspicious. Imagine returning home and your husband kisses you only to check if you had wine, and now he's checking for something else too. History can be messy, and weirdly funny. The food of passion. Ancient aphrodisiacs. We already talked about lettuce, but the ancient world had many more passion foods. Some harmless, some symbolic, some just strange. some of the food of passion are the deadly carrot, Greece, believed to increase male vitality, consumed carefully, respected deeply. Honey, global, used in rituals, weddings, fertility rites, believed to attract love because of its sweetness. Pomegranates, Persia and Greece, symbol of fertility, abundance, and feminine power, also linked to the goddess Persephone. Dates, Arabia and Mesopotamia, considered warm, energizing, and life-giving, used in wedding ceremonies. Figs, Mediterranean, sensual in symbolism, linked to fertility goddesses. Olive oil, Rome and Greece. As mentioned before, the universal enhancer of the ancient world. Food was never just food. Every ingredient carried meaning. The ancient mindset was magical. What you eat shapes who you become. Not entirely wrong, right? The spiritual side of intimacy. When love meant worship. All ancient civilizations had one thing in common. They believed the human body was connected to the divine. Not separate, not sinful, not dirty, but powerful. In India, intimacy symbolized the unity of souls. In Egypt, it mirrored creation myths. In Babylon, it maintained cosmic balance. In Greece, it represented beauty and harmony. In Arabia, poetry turned desire into art. In Hebrew culture, marriage became a sacred covenant. Each culture shaped it differently, but all believed it mattered. The body wasn't just physical, it was sacred. It held stories, it held energy, it held meaning. And this is why sexuality in ancient times was so intertwined with astrology, mythology, rituals, theology, medicine, politics, social hierarchies, family systems. It wasn't just an act, it was a worldview. Egypt, the secret rituals. They never taught in school. We often imagine ancient Egypt as a quiet place. Sand, pyramids, statues staring into eternity, priests walking slowly through incense, and the Nile glowing under sunset. But Egypt had secrets, soft secrets, strange secrets, sacred secrets, and some of these rituals were never meant to be spoken out loud. The festival of Opet, union on earth, renewal in heaven. During the Opet festival, Egyptians celebrated the union of the god Amun and the goddess Mut. This wasn't a quiet ritual, it was loud, joyful, filled with music, dancing, offerings, perfumes, and symbolic gestures of fertility and life. Everyone celebrated, from farmers to nobles. To them, the gods' union meant the Nile would flood, crops would grow, life would continue, families would prosper. Egyptians truly believed that divine intimacy kept the world working. Imagine living in a world where the love of gods created rain, food, health, and safety. It shows you how deeply desire was woven into their mythology. The priest ritual of renewal. Egyptian priests had a ritual that shocks modern listeners. They performed symbolic acts of creation, sometimes involving bodily symbolism, to reenact the creation myth where the first god brought life into existence. These rituals weren't about pleasure, they were about philosophy and cosmic balance. To Egyptians, the body was the universe. What a person did symbolically echoed across the heavens. Strange? Yes, but meaningful to them. Personal hygiene and purity. Egyptians shaved every hair on their bodies, eyebrows, scalp, arms, legs, chest, everything. Why? Purity. It wasn't just hygiene, it was spiritual cleanliness. Priests believed hair carried chaotic energy. Removing it was like removing disorder. This is why their bodies look so smooth and perfect in paintings. It wasn't artistic choice, it was cultural. Egyptians were one of the cleanest ancient civilizations on record, bathing daily, using scented oils, perfumes, and even early forms of deodorant. A beautiful contradiction. They lived in the desert, yet valued cleanliness more than almost any ancient culture. Rome's emperors. Power, loneliness, and the emotional darkness of desire. We've hinted at Rome's excesses, but now let's step into the palace, not for scandalous details but for psychology. Because behind every extreme behavior, there is emotion. And behind every emperor's reputation, there is loneliness. Let's explore the human side. Tiberius. The emperor who ran away. Tiberius is often called one of Rome's most twisted rulers by ancient writers. But the psychological truth? He hated being emperor. He was forced into political marriage, forced into power struggles, forced into roles he didn't want. He retreated to Capri and isolated himself. His strange behaviors weren't just corruption. They were the actions of a man who had no boundaries, had no friends, had no emotional anchor, had unlimited power, and had completely lost touch with reality. It's a tragic, sad picture. A man with the world in his hand and no peace in his heart. Nero, the boy who grew up wrong. Nero's story is a lesson in what happens when a child inherits power, fear, paranoia, and political pressure. He was raised in danger, raised in manipulation, raised to believe everyone wanted to kill him. His emotional life was shattered. His personal decisions became desperate attempts to feel control. Again, not excusing, just explaining the psychology behind power. History isn't always heroes and villains. Sometimes it's broken people with too much authority. Caligula, the child who saw too much. Caligula saw his parents killed, saw his family destroyed, grew up surrounded by violence, paranoia, and betrayal. His behavior later in life wasn't just tyranny, it was trauma turned into governance. Rome's darkest emperors weren't born monsters. They were shaped by fear, tragedy, manipulation, isolation, and unlimited authority. It is disturbing how closely ancient trauma resembles modern trauma, just amplified by power. Babylon's sacred marriage ritual, when kings became gods. We spoke about Babylon before, but now let's talk about something deeper. The ritual known as the sacred marriage. Once a year, during the New Year festival, the king of Babylon performed a symbolic union with a high priestess representing the goddess Ishtar. This wasn't seen as romance, it wasn't sensual, it wasn't personal, it was cosmic. The ritual symbolized fertility of the land, prosperity of the city, blessing of the gods, renewal of life, rebirth of nature, protection for the coming year. Imagine an entire civilization believing its future depended on one symbolic act, an act meant to mirror the divine union in heaven. Another reminder that ancient sexuality wasn't free or rebellious or wild. It was ritual, deep, symbolic, philosophical. Ancient marriage, when love was not the point. In the modern world, people marry for love, companionship, attraction, connection. But in ancient civilizations, marriage was alliance, economics, protection, inheritance, power. Love was optional, nice to have, but not required. Let's explore how different cultures viewed marriage. Egypt, warmth and freedom. Egyptian marriages were surprisingly modern. Men and women could choose partners. Divorce was easy. Property could be split fairly. Affection mattered. Premarital relationships weren't stigmatized. Women had rights, property, and legal voice. Egypt might be the closest ancient culture to modern relationship values. Greece. Pragmatic Greek marriages were practical. Alliance between families, producing heirs, securing land, preserving citizenship. The emotional side usually happened outside the marriage. Strange but true. Rome. Political Roman marriages were essentially contracts. Senate connections, military alliances, financial consolidation, adoption of heirs, expanding influence. Love rarely played a role. India. Sacred Indian marriage was spiritual, ceremonial, symbolic, connected to karma and duty. Two families, not just two individuals. Mesopotamia. Legalistic Mesopotamian marriages involved written tablets, financial agreements, food allocations, household expectations. Marriage wasn't a fairy tale. It was a structural pillar of society. And yet, across all these cultures, even when marriage was strategic, human hearts still found ways to love. The spiritual war between desire and discipline. Ancient civilizations saw desire as both divine and dangerous, a powerful force that could build or destroy, so they created systems, rites, festivals, ceremonies, poetry, laws, taboos, all designed to manage desire, not suppress it. This is something modern society often misunderstands. Ancient cultures weren't obsessed with controlling pleasure, they were obsessed with maintaining order. Too much freedom caused chaos, too much restriction caused rebellion. So they walked a strange tightrope, encouraged desire when it helped society, discourage it when it threatened stability. Balance, always balance, just like the human heart. The mystical side of ancient intimacy. Everything in the ancient world had a spiritual counterpart. Desire was linked to astrology, fate, dreams, omens, rituals, sacred geometry, animals, seasons. Ancient people believed the universe whispered signs, and intimacy was one of those signs. For example, Egyptians saw passion as a solar force, like the rising sun. Indians saw it as the merging of energy pathways, a cosmic dance. Babylonians saw it as the foundation of creation, life emerging from divine union. Greeks saw it as harmony, a blending of beauty and proportion. Hebrews saw it as covenant, a promise between souls. Desire wasn't just desire, it was a language, a symbol, a story. Ancient sexuality was less about bodies and more about meaning. The forbidden fears of the ancient world. Let's talk about fear, a hidden force behind many ancient sexual rules. Because every taboo, every ritual, every law comes from a fear. Fear of chaos, fear of dishonor, fear of disease, fear of infertility, fear of the unknown, fear of the gods, fear of losing power, fear of losing lineage. The ancient world was full of fears that shaped how people acted behind closed doors. Let's explore a few of them. Fear of infertility. Egypt, Mesopotamia. To ancient farmers, the world was fragile. One bad flood, one failed harvest, one drought, one famine, and people died. So fertility wasn't private, it was a public concern. If families didn't produce children, entire villages could weaken or disappear. This pressure made intimacy a community responsibility, not just a personal choice. Imagine that for a moment. Imagine your private life being seen as part of society's survival. That's how ancient people lived. Fear of dishonor. Greece, Rome, Arabia. Dishonor could destroy marriages, reputations, careers, tribes, alliances, entire bloodlines. Honor was everything. This is why many ancient punishments weren't about pain. They were about public shame. If honor was lost, it affected the family, the neighborhood, the tribe, the city's view of you. This is why so many ancient sexual laws sound bizarre today. They weren't about morality, they were about status. Fear of desire itself, Hebrew tradition, and early religious cultures. Some ancient societies didn't fear sex. They feared what uncontrolled desire could lead to. Jealousy, betrayal, violence, social collapse, broken families, emotional chaos. So they taught self-discipline, devotion, and order. Not because desire was wrong, but because desire without boundaries could become destructive. Ancient wisdom has a point. Every powerful human emotion needs direction. When love was dangerous, the tragic stories they don't teach in school. Not all ancient love was beautiful. Some of it was dangerous, risky, forbidden, deadly. And these stories shaped entire cultures. Let me share 3 powerful examples, all safe and historically grounded. The Egyptian princess who loved a soldier. In ancient Egypt, social classes rarely mixed, especially with royalty. A princess fell in love with a common soldier, a man who had nothing to offer except loyalty and kindness. Their love was secret, hidden, quiet, but someone found out. And to protect the dynasty's honor, the princess was forced into a political marriage. The soldier vanished from records. His fate remains unknown, but her poems, scribbled on pieces of papyrus, still survive. Soft, aching lines about missing him, remembering his voice, wishing life were different. The lesson the Egyptians taught through this story: love is powerful, but duty is stronger, tragic, human, ancient, timeless. The Greek poet who loved in shadows. In ancient Greece, poets often hid their deepest loves inside metaphors. One poet, whose name is lost to history, wrote about someone whose voice is a flame, whose absence makes the sky dim, whose footsteps shake the earth of my heart. Historians still argue, was he writing about a man, a woman, a friend, a forbidden lover? We'll never know. But this tells us something profound. Even in a world with strict rules, even in societies obsessed with reputation, people still loved in quiet corners. Love is a rebel like that. The Roman woman who defied her family. Romans weren't romantic, but even they had love stories. One Roman woman left her wealthy fiancé for a poor musician, a scandal that shook her family. Marriage was political, it was alliance, it was strategy. Choosing love over strategy was unthinkable. Her family disowned her, but she didn't return. She built a life with the man she loved, small, quiet, peaceful. A simple love story, but revolutionary in ancient Rome. Her tombstone reads, "She lived as her heart commanded." Sometimes one person's courage becomes another person's legacy. The role of women in ancient desire. Let's talk about women. Because ancient sexuality wasn't just about men. Women experienced intimacy differently across cultures. Egypt. Women had surprising freedom. They could divorce, they could own land, they could run businesses. They could marry for affection, they wrote love poems, they walked streets freely. Their society didn't obsess over purity the way others did. Women had voices. Greece. Greek women lived in the shadows of domestic life. They weren't allowed at symposiums. They rarely participated in politics. Their lives revolved around home and family. But inside poetry, plays, and myth, their emotional depth shines. Rome. Roman women had more influence than people think. They managed estates, influenced politics through husbands' sons, hosted social events, shaped reputations, passed on lineage. Some Roman women became celebrities of their age. Mesopotamia, women had legal rights, inheritance, business contracts, court representation. But they also had heavy social expectations. India women were deeply respected in spirituality. Goddesses, sacred feminine energy, symbols of prosperity. But society placed them within traditional roles. Across all civilizations, despite limitations, one thing stands out. Women found ways to love, influence, and be powerful, even in restrictive systems. The sacred and the strange, the mysteries behind ancient taboos. Some ancient sexual taboos make modern readers raise their eyebrows, but to them, these beliefs were logical. Let's explore a few safely. The Greek fear of too much beauty. Greeks admired beauty so much, they feared it. They believed that people who were too beautiful attracted divine jealousy. So mothers prayed that their daughters would be graceful, kind, healthy, but not overwhelmingly beautiful, in case the gods noticed. Imagine being afraid of being too beautiful. That's ancient Greece. Mesopotamian omens. Mesopotamians believed intimacy could produce omens, not physical, but symbolic. For example, if a lamp flickered a certain way, if a dog barked outside, if a clay pot cracked during the night, these signs could mean anything from good fortune to looming disaster. They saw the whole world as a message. Rome's obsession with protection charms. Romans wore small amulets, not for protection in battle, but for protection in romance. These amulets included carved stones, small bronze figurines, herbs wrapped in linen, inscriptions of good fortune phrases. Love was unpredictable. So, Romans tried to control fate however they could. intimacy, and the cosmos. Why ancient people connected love to the stars. This is one of the most beautiful parts of ancient culture. Nearly every civilization believed the stars influenced attraction, fertility, compatibility, marriage, timing, destiny. Egyptians aligned marriages with lunar cycles. Indians used astrology to match couples. Greeks connected desires to zodiac symbols. Babylonians created the first star charts for life decisions. They believed, love is written in the sky. And even today, people still check horoscopes before dating. Some ideas never die, they just evolve. Why ancient civilizations were obsessed with balance in desire. Ancient cultures knew something we forget today. Humans are emotional beings. Desire is powerful, and power needs balance. So they created laws, festivals, marriage contracts, poems, ceremonies, myths, medical theories, moral teachings, all designed to balance passion with order. Not suppress, balance. They knew that. Too much repression leads to rebellion. Too much freedom leads to chaos. Too much desire leads to distraction. Too little desire leads to decline. So they walked the middle path, a dance between restraint and release, between emotion and duty, between body and spirit, between individual and society. And this dance shaped everything. Mythology. When gods became the mirrors of human desire. Before kings, before queens, before soldiers and scribes, there were the gods. And the gods shaped how ancient people understood love, desire, beauty, attraction, jealousy, loyalty, heartbreak, betrayal. Because the ancient mind believed this. If the gods do it, humans reflect it. If the gods feel it, humans learn from it. If the gods fight over love, humans must handle it with care. Let's explore how ancient myths shaped real-life sexuality. Egypt, Osiris and Isis, the eternal lovers. The story of Osiris and Isis is one of the oldest love stories ever told. Osiris, the wise king. Isis, the devoted queen. Seth, the jealous brother. Horus, the child of destiny. When Osiris was murdered, Isis traveled the world to piece his body back together, literally, to revive him. Not just for vengeance, not just for power, but because she loved him. Their union created Horus. Their bond symbolized fertility. Their devotion shaped Egyptian marriage values. To Egyptians, love wasn't fragile, love was magic. Love could resurrect even the dead. No wonder they believed marriage had spiritual power. Greece. Aphrodite. Beauty, desire, and the chaos it brings. Aphrodite was not a quiet goddess. She was passion itself. Where she walked, hearts opened, rivals fought, kings lost kingdoms, heroes lost battles, empires fell. The Greeks believed desire was sacred, but also dangerous. Aphrodite wasn't evil. She was simply uncontrollable. A reminder that love can inspire greatness or destroy everything. Ancient Greeks feared her and adored her at the same time, a perfect symbol of desire itself. Mesopotamia, Ishtar, love and war are one. Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, embodied contradiction. When she loved deeply. When she fought fiercely. She symbolized both tenderness and chaos. Ancient Mesopotamians believed this was not strange. This was the truth of human emotion. Love can bring peace. Love can start battles. Love can heal. Love can burn. Ishtar represented the duality of desire, its beauty and its danger. India, Shiva and Shakti, energy and unity. Shiva represents consciousness, Shakti represents creation. Together they symbolize balance, masculine and feminine, stillness and movement, energy and form, spirit and matter. Indian mythology portrayed intimacy as cosmic unity, two energies merging to create harmony. This idea influenced Indian philosophy, yoga, meditation, and the concept of balancing energies within oneself. Not physical, not sensual, but spiritual. Ancient India believed intimacy is a metaphor for cosmic union, a symbol of balance, not just attraction. Symbolism, the secret language of ancient desire. Ancient people didn't see the world literally, they saw it symbolically. Everything was a sign, everything had meaning. Let's explore how a few symbols shaped ancient sexuality, safely and respectfully. The lotus, Egypt and India. The lotus flower was a symbol of purity, rebirth, beauty, divine creation, feminine energy. Why? Because it grows from mud, yet emerges clean and perfect, a symbol of rising above hardship. Egyptians associated it with the sun. Indians associated it with spiritual awakening. In both cultures, it symbolized sacred femininity. The bull, Mesopotamia and Greece. The bull represented strength, vitality, masculinity, leadership. It appeared in temples, myths, royal emblems, festivals, not because of aggression, but because people saw animals as mirrors of human traits. The bull symbolized powerful, creative life energy. The dove, Hebrew culture, Greece, Near East. The dove symbolized peace, purity, gentle companionship, devotion. It appears in Greek myths as Aphrodite's bird, Hebrew scriptures, Near Eastern rituals. The dove represented a tender, emotional side of love. The sun and moon, global ancient civilizations worldwide saw the sun and moon as lovers. The sun, passion, strength, warmth. The moon, mystery, calm, intuition. Their dance across the sky symbolized masculine and feminine balance, day and night unity, cosmic harmony. The sky itself became a stage for love stories. The strange, the sacred, and the unexplained. When ancient beliefs get weird. We've looked at the spiritual side. Now let's explore the weird side, safely. Because ancient civilizations believe some things that will make you blink twice. The Romans believed sneezing released energy. Yes, sneezing was considered a sign of arousal, luck, divine approval. People said, live long after sneezes. Not just as a greeting, but as a blessing of vitality. Strange? Yes, but also oddly wholesome. The Greek fear of mirrors at night. Greeks believed looking in a mirror after sunset could trap your soul or distort your emotions. Why? Because reflection was linked to the afterlife, dreams, spiritual vulnerability, desire, beauty, and self-image. All became mysterious forces at night. It's a reminder that ancient people blended science and myth seamlessly. Egypt's belief in scented oils as emotional medicine. For Egyptians, scent wasn't cosmetic, it was healing. Different oils symbolized calm, courage, affection, clarity, attraction, protection. Priests used perfume as spiritual therapy. Imagine living in a world where your emotions were treated with fragrance. It sounds beautiful. We could use some of that today. Mesopotamian dream diagnosis. Ancient Babylon had dream priests who interpreted people's romantic dreams as omens. If you dreamt of water, emotional overflow, mountains, personal challenge, birds, longing, storms, inner conflict. Dreams were maps of your heart. This shows how deeply ancient people connected emotion to meaning. The psychology of ancient desire. Now let's go deeper. Not into bodies, but into minds. Ancient sexuality wasn't just physical or cultural, it was psychological. People today aren't that different from people back then. They loved, they longed, they feared, they hoped, they made mistakes, they tried to understand themselves. Here's what ancient desire teaches us about the human heart. Humans always crave connection, from the Ayin Sakri, lovers, 11,000 years ago, to Egyptian poetry, to Greek myths, to Babylonian rituals, to Indian philosophies. Humans have always wanted closeness, comfort, partnership, understanding. This is timeless. Humans fear rejection, then and now. Ancient poems reveal the same fears modern people have. What if they don't feel the same? What if I'm not enough? What if they choose someone else? What if I lose them? People think ancient cultures were strong or emotionless. Not true. Their writing shows intense vulnerability. Society always tries to control desire. Every culture created rules, for better or worse. Why? Because desire is powerful. People feared it could break alliances, hurt reputations, disrupt families, cause conflict. So society created boundaries, but love always found a way around them. That's the human spirit. People always find love in complicated places, secret letters in Egypt, forbidden friendships in Rome, hidden poems in Greece, quiet marriages in India, whispered promises in Arabia. Love grows in strange places. It always has. When ancient civilizations changed the world through desire, believe it or not, intimacy shaped history. Empires rose and fell over. Marriages, alliances, jealousy, favoritism, heartbreak, forbidden relationships. Let's look at a few examples, all safe. The Trojan War, Greece. One love story sparked a conflict that shaped Greek mythology. Helen, Paris, Menelaus. Was it love, desire, politics? Diplomacy gone wrong? Nobody knows. But it changed history. Cleopatra and Rome, Egypt. Cleopatra aligned with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony. These relationships weren't just personal, they shifted global power. Egypt almost became the center of the Mediterranean because of them. India's royal alliances, marriages joined kingdoms. Love stories created peace. Romantic alliances ended wars. Intimacy wasn't private for royals, it was political strategy. Number 4. Babylon's rituals. The sacred marriage reinforced the king's divine authority, keeping political stability for centuries. Desire, ritual, and governance were intertwined. What all ancient civilizations teach us about modern love. Here's the truth. We think we're modern, advanced, emotionally sophisticated. But the more we study ancient civilizations, the more we see that humans haven't changed. Not really. Everyone still wants to feel valued, to feel desired, to feel understood, to find connection, to be seen, to be loved. Ancient people prayed for love. They wrote about it, they fought over it, they dreamed about it, they sacrificed for it, they healed through it, just like we do today. The world changes. Empires rise and fall. But the human heart? It stays the same. When beauty was dangerous, the social rules of attractiveness. Beauty today is celebrated, admired, photographed, chased. But in the ancient world, beauty was complicated. It brought opportunities, jealousy, admiration, fear, suspicion. Let's walk into how different civilizations viewed physical attraction. Too beautiful is a problem. Greeks worshipped beauty, especially symmetry. But they also feared that too much beauty attracted the gods' jealousy. They believed the gods watched humans closely and punished those who were too blessed. This gave rise to the idea of the curse of beauty. A beautiful girl might be hidden, protected, kept indoors, guarded by relatives, not out of control, but out of fear that beauty would invite divine misfortune. Imagine a world where beauty was a blessing and a burden. Egypt. Beauty as harmony. Egyptians saw beauty as balance. Clear skin, bright eyes, clean-shaven bodies, well-groomed hair, scented oils, elegant clothing. Beauty wasn't vanity, it was harmony. A well-presented person reflected inner order, emotional balance, and respect for the gods. This is why Egyptians cared so much about makeup, hygiene, perfume, cosmetics, not for seduction, but for spiritual purity. Mesopotamia. Beauty is power. In Babylon and Sumer, beauty meant status. A beautiful person could secure better marriages, gain political advantage, Receive higher bride price. Attract powerful allies. Rise socially. Beauty was strategic, a form of social currency. This made grooming a critical part of Mesopotamian daily life. Waxing, oils, henna, jewelry, detailed hairstyles. They weren't shallow. They were survival experts. Rome, beauty as luxury. Romans associated beauty with wealth, access to high-quality oils, fine fabrics, elaborate hairstyles, exotic perfumes. A well-kept appearance showed social rank, not romance. Roman beauty was a display of class. The secret social laws that governed ancient desire. Every civilization had unwritten rules, social codes that shaped intimacy without being written down. These invisible laws tell us more than official tablets ever could. Let's explore a few. Your private life is public business. In the ancient world, desire wasn't private. It affected inheritance, alliances, reputation, tribal ties, religious purity, political balance. Private choices had public consequences. This is why ancient societies regulated marriage, divorce, fidelity, courtship, inheritance rights, public behavior, not to suppress desire, but to protect society's structure. Status determines everything. Across Rome, Greece, Babylon, and India, who you were mattered more than what you felt. Your class, gender, family, reputation, occupation, all shaped your romantic freedom. This may sound unfair today, but it was normal then. Love is allowed, chaos is not. Ancient cultures didn't hate romance. They hated disorder. Anything that threatened political alliances, family unity, property inheritance, tribal stability was tightly controlled. Love was fine. Chaos was not. Emotions are powerful. Handle with caution. Ancient civilizations understood something very modern. People make the worst decisions when overwhelmed by desire. So they taught discipline, balance, mindfulness, emotional restraint, wisdom. We think these ideas are modern, but they're thousands of years old. Dreams, desire, and destiny. How ancient people interpreted romantic dreams. Ancient civilizations had entire systems for understanding dreams, especially dreams involving love. Let's explore how different cultures interpreted sleeping visions. Mesopotamia, dreams as messages from gods. Babylonians believed dreams were direct communication with heavenly forces. A romantic dream meant blessing, prophecy, emotional imbalance, divine instruction, subconscious warning. Dream interpreters, called Baru priests, would read your dreams like a doctor reads symptoms. If someone dreamt of water, emotions rising fire, intense passion, lions, uncontrollable desires, storms, inner conflict, birds, longing or separation. Mesopotamians didn't laugh at dreams. They built entire clinics around them. Egypt, dreams as spiritual mirrors. Egyptians saw dreams as reflections of the soul. Dreams about marriage, weddings, lovers, family were interpreted as emotional truths. Egyptian dream books still exist today, filled with interpretations like, to see a loved one in sleep is a good omen. To see yourself embracing someone means your heart longs for harmony. Soft poetic interpretations. India dreams as energetic messages. Ancient Indian philosophy believed dreams were connected to the subtle body, the emotional and spiritual layer of the human being. Love dreams meant energetic imbalance, subconscious desire, karmic connection, emotional awakening. They weren't warnings. They were lessons. Greece. Dreams as rational symbols. Greeks believed dreams were created by the mind to solve problems. So, romantic dreams were reflections of suppressed feelings, hidden desires, emotional tension, unspoken attraction. Some philosophers believed dreams allowed people to safely experience what they couldn't express in reality. Ancient psychology, surprisingly advanced. The secret fears of ancient men and women. Yes, they had insecurities too. We think ancient people were strong, stoic, fearless, but their writings reveal something different. They had insecurities, just like we do. Let's explore the emotional side. Men's fears. Ancient men feared failing to provide, losing honor, appearing weak, being rejected, not producing heirs, disappointing their families, losing social status. In many cultures, a man's worth was measured by his household, his marriage, his children, his strength. This pressure created emotional weight rarely discussed in modern history books. Women's fears. Ancient women feared losing social protection, unhappy marriages, forced marriages, separation from children, being judged harshly, being powerless in decision-making. Yet many women found ways to express emotional strength through poetry, song, symbols, rituals, family influence. Ancient women were far stronger than most people realize. Private letters, the emotional truths ancient people left behind. Some of the most touching historical evidence comes from personal letters. These letters reveal how people actually felt, not how laws said they should feel. Let's explore a few examples. All safe. Egyptian love letters. Some Egyptian letters say, "My heart burns until I see you. I dream of you every night. I will wait for you beside the river as the moon rises." They sound like modern texts, don't they? Egyptians were deeply emotional. Greek letters of longing. Greek letters reveal unspoken emotions, cautious desire, quiet longing, heartbreak. One says, "I sit awake thinking of you, unable to sleep because my heart wanders." Sleep video energy, soft, emotional, poetic. Roman letters of devotion. Romans wrote surprising affection. "Without you, the house is empty. I pray the gods return you safely. Your absence makes time move slowly." Even though Roman society was strict, the heart always found a way. Babylonian clay tablets of marriage. Babylonian marriage tablets, while legalistic, sometimes ended with emotional lines like, "May the goddess bless your house," or "May our union bring peace." Even in business-like marriage contracts, love peeked through. Beauty rituals. How ancient civilizations prepared the body for love. Ancient people took grooming very seriously, but not for seduction alone. They believed grooming was spiritual, symbolic, healing, protective, respectful. Let's look at a few rituals. Egyptian fragrance rituals. Egyptians used lotus oil, myrrh, frankincense, sacred floral blends. Not to smell attractive, but to cleanse energy. They believed emotional balance required scent. Greek bathing rituals. Greeks bathed before social gatherings using olive oil, aromatic herbs, steam rooms. Bathing was purification, a reset of body and mind. Indian hair rituals. In India, hair was considered sacred. Women used coconut oil, jasmine oil, henna treatments. Hair rituals symbolized femininity, spiritual energy, emotional grounding. Roman cosmetics. Romans used perfumes, tinted creams, hair jewelry, scented powders. Beauty was art, a reflection of prosperity, what modern people can learn from ancient desire. After exploring the strange, the symbolic, the emotional, the philosophical, there is a lesson. Ancient people understood something we often forget. Love is fragile. Desire is powerful. Connection is essential. Emotions shape history. They built systems, not perfect ones, but systems, to protect family, harmony, society, lineage, emotional stability. Their rituals may seem strange. Their beliefs may seem unusual. Their customs may seem outdated. But behind all of it was one message: human connection is sacred. Handle it with care. The invisible empire, secrecy and shadow relationships in antiquity. In modern times, secrecy sounds like cheating, hidden texts, private messages, sneaking around. But in the ancient world, secrecy meant survival. Many loves were forbidden, not because of immorality, but because of class rules, political power, family arrangements, tribal contracts, inheritance systems, honor codes. So thousands of quiet, hidden relationships existed in every civilization. Let's explore this shadow world, safely and respectfully. Greece, the love that poetry protected. Greek writers often described hidden love with metaphors. The walls heard me long before anyone else did. Or, I looked at you only when the stars looked away. It wasn't shame that forced secrecy, but society's strict expectations. Many friendships grew into deeper bonds, yet were never acknowledged in public. Poetry became their diary, a safe place to tell the truth. Even the greatest Greek poets, Sappho, Anacreon, and others, used their poems to hide desires in elegant language. Rome, where status was a wall. In Rome, love across social ranks was nearly impossible. A senator couldn't be with an actress, a dancer, a slave, a lower-class woman. Not because he didn't want to, but because society forbade it. Roman reputation was everything. So quiet relationships flourished behind heavy curtains and palace doors. Not scandalous, just secret. Some lasted years, decades. Some ended painfully. Some were never discovered. Ancient love survived through whispers. Egypt, letters under pillows. Egyptians were surprisingly open about affection, but even they had quiet romances. Why? Because family approval mattered, clans mattered, marriage arrangements mattered. So lovers exchanged secret notes. Left under pillows, carved into pots, slipped between papyrus sheets, hidden in baskets of lotus flowers. We still find these messages today. Soft words, tender longing, human emotion that survived 3,000 years. The unwritten code of loyalty. Ancient civilizations valued loyalty differently from modern times. We think loyalty is emotional, romantic, personal, private. But ancient loyalty was political, spiritual, social, communal. You weren't loyal for yourself. You were loyal for your tribe, your bloodline, your land, your ancestors, your children, your legacy. Let's explore what loyalty meant across cultures. India. Loyalty as sacred duty. Indian mythology describes devotion as dharma, moral duty. Love wasn't simply affection. It was part of one's identity, one's destiny. Two souls were believed to be cosmically linked. Loyalty meant honoring. Energy, balance, destiny, vows, spiritual unity. Marriage wasn't a contract, it was a union of two life paths. Mesopotamia, loyalty as stability. Babylonian families relied on loyalty to maintain property and inheritance. Romantic loyalty mattered. But family loyalty mattered more. A person who broke trust threatened land, wealth, reputation, alliances. So the community closely watched relationships, not out of hatred, but fear of instability. Greece, loyalty and philosophy. Greek philosophers discussed loyalty as virtue, honor, rational commitment. It wasn't blind devotion. It was chosen consistency. To love and remain loyal was seen as wisdom, not weakness. Rome, loyalty as strength. Romans valued loyalty above all virtues. A loyal partner increased demands. Honor, political power, household stability, public respect. Roman marriage expectations were strict, not because Romans were romantic, but because they saw loyalty as a pillar of empire. Ancient betrayal. When love turned into politics. Let's talk about betrayal, safely, not scandal, not explicit stories, but betrayal as a human experience. In ancient civilizations, betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was political. A broken promise could break an alliance. A secret affair could collapse a dynasty. A disloyal spouse could cause civil war. Let's explore a few dramatic examples that changed history. Helen of Troy, the woman who started a war. Was it betrayal, passion, kidnapping, political manipulation? No one knows. But her departure from Greece to Troy launched a 10-year war, thousands of deaths, the fall of Troy, legendary heroes like Achilles and Hector. Whether Helen loved Paris or was taken by force, her story shows how one relationship can shake nations. Cleopatra and Roman politics. Cleopatra's alliances with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony shook the entire Mediterranean world. Her relationships weren't simply personal, they had global consequences. Rome split into factions, armies formed, civil war erupted. This was not a love affair, it was geopolitics wearing the mask of romance. The Hebrew kings and domestic conflict. In the Hebrew Bible, several kings struggled with marital discord that spilled into politics. Rivalries, jealousy, inheritance disputes, division between tribes. These weren't just personal issues, they influenced the fate of entire kingdoms. Babylonian court intrigues. In Mesopotamia, jealousy between royal wives and concubines often led to poisoning attempts, accusations, coups, manipulation. Ancient courts were emotional battlegrounds. Love wasn't soft, it was strategic. The magic, charms, and rituals of ancient love. The ancient world believed in magic, not tricks, not illusions. Magic was psychology, hope, emotional support, cultural wisdom, symbolic action. Love magic existed everywhere, safely and symbolically. Let's explore some. Greek love charms. Greeks used knotted strings, inscribed stones, tiny statues, sacred herbs. These weren't spells, they were psychological anchors, objects that represented emotional intention. Egyptian amulets. Egyptians kept amulets symbolizing harmony, protection, affection. The most common was the ankh, symbolizing life. It wasn't about seduction, it was about emotional strength. Mesopotamian incantations. Babylonians used gentle incantations, nothing harmful, to calm emotional storms, reconcile partners, inspire mutual affection, restore harmony in households. These rituals blended poetry and prayer. Roman fortune reading. Romans read omens like bird flight, candle flickers, the shape of smoke, not to manipulate love, but to understand fate. They believed the universe left clues. Chapter 49. Male and female energy in ancient philosophy. Let's talk about something deep. Energy. Almost every civilization believed humans carried masculine and feminine energy, regardless of gender. This wasn't physical, it wasn't sexual, it was symbolic. India, Shakti and Shiva. Shakti equals creation. Shiva equals consciousness. Together they form harmony. This shaped Indian views of marriage and intimacy as a spiritual union, not just emotional or physical. China, yin and yang, not sexual, symbolic. Yin equals soft, intuitive, reflective. Yang equals strong, active, outward. Balance between them created harmony. Relationships were believed to flourish when energies complemented each other. Egypt, the two lands. Egypt saw balance everywhere. Upper Egypt, masculine energy. Lower Egypt, feminine energy. Their unity created the kingdom. Even their crowns symbolized a union of energies. Greece, balance of temperaments. Greek philosophers spoke of passion, reason, emotion, restraint. Love required harmony of these forces. The final layers: emotion, memory, and the heart of ancient desire. To end part 8, we go deeper into the emotional truth behind everything we've covered. Because beneath the rituals, beneath the symbols, beneath the laws, beneath the myths, there is one human truth. Ancient people loved exactly like we do. They cherished, doubted, hoped, feared, longed, cried, sacrificed, dreamed. They wrote about heartbreak. They whispered prayers for affection. They looked at someone and felt the world pause. They had crushes, they had disappointments, they had butterflies, they had regrets. Nothing about human emotion is new. The world changed, empires rose, civilizations collapsed, languages died, cultures vanished, but the heart stayed the same. Ancient wedding rituals, when marriage was a cosmic contract. Modern weddings are about love, celebration, photos, rings. But in the ancient world, marriage was much bigger than romance. Marriage was a legal bond, a political alliance, a spiritual contract, a family negotiation, a community expectation, a symbolic merging of destinies. Let's uncover how different civilizations celebrated this sacred event. Egypt. Weddings without ceremony, but full of love. Most people don't know this. Ancient Egypt had no formal marriage ceremony. No priests, no temples, no scripts, no "you may kiss the bride." Two people became married simply by signing a contract or BPA. They're moving in together. What made it beautiful was their belief. Marriage is the joining of two hearts under the sun. Egyptians married for companionship more than politics, rare for the ancient world. They valued loyalty, affection, household harmony, mutual respect. One surviving Egyptian marriage contract even says, "I will not cause her sorrow. I will protect her as long as I live." Ancient Egypt was soft, gentle, emotionally intelligent, very modern in spirit. Greece. Weddings as family duty. Greek weddings lasted 3 days. On day 1, proalia, offerings to the gods, especially Artemis and Aphrodite. The bride prepared spiritually. On day 2, gamos, the main ceremony. Feasts, torches, blessings, songs. The bride was escorted to her new home. And on the 3rd day, epolia, gifts for the bride. Family bonding, new beginnings. Marriage wasn't romantic. It was social structure. Greeks valued order above desire. Rome. The ceremony of the joined hands. Roman weddings were extremely symbolic. The core moment? Dextrarum iunctio, the joining of right hands. This symbolized partnership, unity, shared responsibility, mutual promise. The words spoken were simple. Where you are, I am. Roman brides wore a flame-colored veil, symbolizing warmth and protection. Romans treated marriage as the foundation of empire, not a personal choice, but a social duty. Ancient India, the sacred fire ceremony. Indian weddings are ancient, detailed, spiritual. The most important moment? Saptapadi. The 7 steps around the sacred fire. Each step represents nourishment, strength, prosperity, happiness, children, harmony, friendship. These principles formed the backbone of ancient Indian marriage. It was not just a union, it was a spiritual journey. Mesopotamia. Marriage as law and legacy. Sumerians and Babylonians created some of the earliest marriage laws on earth. Marriage was recorded on clay tablets, witnessed by families, protected by legal rights. It ensured stability, inheritance, social order, legitimacy. Love existed, but law guided everything. The politics of heirs, why children changed everything. In the ancient world, children weren't just kids, they were heirs, future workers, family protection, political tools, spiritual anchors, continuation of lineage. Everything depended on them. This is why intimacy wasn't always private. It was connected to stability. Let's explore how heirs shaped ancient desire. Egypt. Children were blessings, not necessity. Egyptians loved children deeply, but here's something interesting. Egyptian inheritances allowed daughters equal rights. This reduced pressure on producing male heirs. Families cared more about harmony than lineage battles. Egypt was emotionally intelligent even in parenting. Mesopotamia. Children were legal guarantees. Babylonian inheritance laws were strict. Heirs determined who got land, who kept property, who maintained the household gods, who continued the family name. This made fertility critical to social stability. It also influenced marriage expectations and rituals. Greece. Sons carried citizenship. Citizenship was inherited through male offspring. This meant marriages were strictly arranged. Women were expected to produce heirs. Men had social pressure to maintain lineage. This wasn't emotional, it was civic duty. Rome, heirs were power. Roman emperors adopted heirs when they had no sons. This wasn't weakness, it was smart strategy. Adoption meant choosing the strongest candidate to continue leadership. In Rome, lineage equals empire stability. Strange fertility customs, safe, symbolic, historical. Fertility was a big deal, not physically, but symbolically. Ancient civilizations created rituals to bless families. Let's look at a few unusual ones. Egypt, the festival of Hathor. Hathor was the goddess of motherhood, love, music, joy. People celebrated with music, incense, offerings, symbolic dances. It wasn't wild or explicit. It was joyful and musical, a celebration of life. Greece, the Thesmophoria festival, a women-only festival honoring Demeter. It included prayers, symbolic offerings, purification rituals. Some parts were mysterious because men were forbidden. It celebrated fertility not as desire, but as agriculture and family. Mesopotamia, New Year, fertility rituals. During Akitu, offerings were made to renew the land, bless families, honor the gods. These rituals were symbolic, not personal or intimate. They used song, incense, and prayer. India, Vedic blessings. Ancient Indian texts included chants, prayers, symbolic fire rituals, all meant to align families with cosmic energy. Fertility was spiritual, not physical. Diplomacy, through marriage, when love saved empires. One of the most powerful tools in ancient politics was marriage. Marriages weren't just partnerships, they were peace treaties. Here are some iconic examples. Egypt and Hittites, a marriage that ended a war. After years of conflict, Ramses II married a Hittite princess. This marriage ended the war, united kingdoms, created history's first known peace treaty. Marriage as weapon? Maybe. Marriage as healing? Absolutely. India, marriages between kingdoms. Indian rulers used marriage to end regional feuds, unite families, prevent war, strengthen trade alliances. Queens were diplomats in their own right. Greece, Alexander the Great's diplomatic marriages. Alexander married Roxana of Bactria and later Persian noblewomen. This wasn't romance, it was uniting empires through lineage. His marriages reshaped the Mediterranean and Asia. Rome, marriage as political chess. Roman elites arranged marriages to gain Senate support, secure military loyalty, strengthen alliances. Marriage wasn't emotional, it was strategy. When love appears in mythology's darkest moments. Myths often deal with the emotional edges of humanity: jealousy, obsession, heartbreak, revenge, sacrifice. Let's explore a few. Safe, symbolic. Orpheus and Eurydice. Love stronger than death. Orpheus descended into the underworld to rescue his wife. His music softened even the heart of Hades. But he broke the one rule: do not look back. And he lost her forever. It teaches, love is powerful, but doubt is dangerous. Shiva's grief in India. When Shiva's beloved Sati died, he carried her body across the world, grieving so intensely that the gods feared the end of creation. This myth symbolizes loss, healing, unconditional devotion. Even gods suffered heartbreak. Ishtar and Tammuz, the cycle of seasons. Ishtar's beloved Tammuz died, and her grief was so profound that nature stopped. Her descent to the underworld brought winter, silence, sorrow. Her return marked spring, rebirth, renewal. Love and nature intertwined. What ancient sexuality really teaches us about humanity. After all these chapters, you may have noticed a pattern. Ancient sexuality wasn't really about pleasure, scandal, shock. It was about society, stability, spirituality, family, order, identity, emotion, survival. The big lesson? Intimacy in ancient civilizations wasn't wild. It was meaningful, symbolic, cosmic, responsible, structured, purposeful. People weren't driven by chaos. They were trying to build strong societies. Even the strangest customs had deeper meaning. And beneath everything, whether in Egypt, Greece, Babylon, India, Rome, Arabia, or Hebrew lands, humans were simply trying to understand the world, love each other, make families, keep traditions, build futures. The body was not the center, the heart was. The decline of empires and how sexuality shifted with power. Civilizations rise and they fall. But what most people don't realize is this: when empires weaken, their sexual norms change too. Not scandalously, but spiritually, emotionally, socially. Because as society collapses, people cling to new beliefs, new moral codes, new fears, new hopes, new explanations for chaos. Desire becomes a mirror of the times. Let's explore how major civilizations changed their sexual values in their final centuries. Rome. From luxury to fear. During Rome's peak, society believed pleasure equals prosperity, beauty equals status, pleasure-seeking equals power. But as Rome declined, invasions, famine, corruption, political assassinations, economic collapse changed everything. A fearful society becomes stricter. Moral codes tightened. Philosophers preached discipline, household regulations increased, religious groups called for purity. Pleasure became suspicious, luxury became shameful. People began to believe Rome fell because people lost discipline. Was this true? Not really. But fear makes people look for simple explanations. And for the first time, Romans began viewing desire as something that needed to be controlled, not celebrated. Greece, from philosophy to tradition. Early Greece embraced exploration of beauty, emotion, the human body, artistic love, companionship, messy desires. But late Greece, especially under Roman influence, became far more conservative. As political independence faded, the emotional freedom of earlier eras faded too. Philosophy turned into restraint. Discipline, restraint, duty. Not because they stopped believing in beauty, but because they no longer had the stability that once allowed them to celebrate it. Egypt, from cosmic love to religious restraint. Ancient Egypt was spiritually open, gentle, and symbolic, but after multiple foreign invasions, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Egypt's emotional confidence changed. New rulers brought new laws, new religions, new morals, new expectations. Yet, Egyptians adapted without losing their tender heart. Even as customs changed, one thing remained. Egyptian love letters stayed soft, sweet, poetic. Even in decline, Egypt held on to emotional intelligence. Mesopotamia, the fall of the First World. Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, ended after waves of conquest. With each collapse, Sumerian customs vanished, Babylonian rituals faded, Assyrian beliefs transformed, temple practices died out, ancient sexual customs became forbidden, not because they were harmful, but because new rulers replaced them with new traditions. History proves, morality changes when power changes. The rise of religion and the new moral codes of desire. As ancient empires collapsed, major religions spread across the world. Judaism became more structured. Christianity rose in Rome. Islam emerged in Arabia. Buddhism expanded in India. Zoroastrianism shaped Persia. These religions brought new values, new moral expectations, new family structures, new sexual ethics, new ideas of purity. Let's look at how they transformed ancient beliefs, safely and respectfully. Judaism, family as covenant. Hebrew tradition centered marriage on loyalty, covenant, devotion, household unity. Desire wasn't sinful. It simply belonged within spiritual boundaries. The focus shifted from symbolic rituals to moral behavior. Christianity, desire as something to understand carefully. Christian teachings emerging in Rome emphasized spiritual purity, emotional discipline, devotion, compassion, care for the household. Love was sacred, marriage was honored, the body was respected. Early Christians weren't anti-desire, they were anti-excess, a reaction to Rome's luxury. Islam, family, honor, responsibility. Early Islamic tradition transformed Arabia from tribal chaos to organized unity. Marriage became a protection for women, a stabilizer for men, a legal bond, a social responsibility, a moral structure. Love, devotion, and loyalty were encouraged, just with discipline and rules. Desire wasn't rejected, it was guided. Buddhism, desire as attachment. Buddhism taught, attachment causes suffering. Discipline brings peace. Compassion is the highest form of love. This philosophy reshaped personal relationships across South and Southeast Asia. Relationships became mindful, gentle, reflective, peaceful. The opposite of chaotic passion. Ancient myths about purity and pollution. Every civilization believed certain behaviors or emotions created purity or pollution, not physically, symbolically. Let's explore a few ancient purity beliefs, safe and respectful. Greece, blood is sacred blood, especially childbirth and wounds, was considered spiritually powerful. It needed rituals to restore symbolic cleanliness. This belief shaped Greek marriage and household structure. Rome, household spirits. Romans believed every family had a guardian spirit, household gods, ancestral protectors. A peaceful home kept these spirits pleased. Love, harmony, and respect were considered forms of spiritual cleanliness. India, cycles and energy. Ancient Indian tradition linked purity to moon cycles, life stages, spiritual disciplines, emotional harmony. Purity wasn't about perfection, it was about balance. Egypt, Ma'at, cosmic order. Egyptians believed in Ma'at, the cosmic law of harmony. Anything that disrupted balance, peace, unity was unpure. Love aligned with Ma'at. Chaos did not. the ancient science of emotional balance, one of the most fascinating things in ancient sexuality is this. Every civilization treated love as emotional medicine. Not physical, not wild, not reckless, but healing. Let's explore how. Egypt. Love as a healing force. Egyptians believed affection reduces sorrow, strengthens the heart, brings good dreams, protects the soul. Their love poems often describe romance as cool water after heat, shade after sun, a boat reaching safe harbor, healing metaphors everywhere. Greece. Love as inner harmony. Greek philosophers believed passion equals fire, reason equals water, balance equals happiness. They warned against extremes. Their message, balance your heart, balance your life. India. Love as energy. Exchange. Indian philosophy viewed desire as life energy, creative force, spiritual connection. Not sinful, not chaotic, but powerful and transformational. Rome. Love as stability. Romans valued harmony, household peace, loyalty, mutual support. Love created order, and order built empires. Why ancient people saw desire as a teacher. This may surprise you. Ancient people believed desire could teach important lessons. Patience, humility, compassion, discipline, courage, emotional intelligence. Desire wasn't something to avoid. It was something to learn from. A doorway to self-understanding, self-control, connection, maturity. This made ancient sexuality incredibly philosophical, far more sophisticated than modern assumptions. The secret reason ancient sexuality feels shocking today. After all this history, one question remains. Why do ancient customs feel shocking to us now? The answer is simple. Because we forgot something they understood. Sexuality is not just physical. It is cultural, emotional, political, spiritual, symbolic, and historical. Ancient people didn't separate. Body from soul. Desire from destiny. Marriage from society. Intimacy from ritual. Emotion from responsibility. Modern society tries to simplify desire. Ancient society explored it deeply. That's why their customs seem strange. Not because they were wild, but because they were profound. They saw desire as a force, a mirror, a teacher, a symbol, a cosmic pattern, a bigger idea than modern people imagine. The stages of ancient love, from attraction to legacy. Ancient civilizations didn't experience love in the small, private way we often imagine today. Love had stages, each with social expectations. Let's explore these stages, which almost every ancient society shared, surprisingly consistent across thousands of miles and thousands of years. Attraction, the first spark. In ancient stories, a glance, a poem, a letter, a song, a dance, a shared moment was enough to begin a bond. People believed the heart recognized truth instantly. Egyptian love poems speak of, "My heart leaps when I see you walking. I tremble like a reed when you pass. I am blind to everything when you are near." Even in Greece, where emotions were often suppressed, poets still whispered, "I knew you before your name reached my ears." Attraction was seen as fate, not accident. Consideration, the family factor. Families were deeply involved. Ancient societies believed, you don't just marry a person, you marry a household. So attraction wasn't enough. Families evaluated utilo, compatibility, status, future security, lineage balance. Marriage was emotional, yes, but also strategic. Union, the social contract. Marriage created new partnerships, alliances, economic stability, spiritual unity, political harmony. To ancient people, Love strengthened society. It wasn't just between two people. It echoed through generations. Partnership, the shared life. Couples became co-managers of the home, co-protectors of the family, co-nurturers of children, co-leaders of the household gods. Marriage wasn't a moment. It was a journey. Legacy, the afterlife of love. Ancient civilizations believed love could outlive the body. Egyptians wrote letters to deceased spouses. Greeks made statues of beloved partners. Romans carved inscriptions of devotion. Indians wrote legends of eternal couples. They believed love is not erased by death, it is transformed. A powerful lesson we still feel today. Ancient jealousy, the shadow side of desire. Yes, ancient people felt jealousy too, but it wasn't always romantic jealousy. It was often political, economic, reputational, inheritance-based. Let's explore this safely. Greek jealousy, not over love, but over honor. Greeks cared more about reputation, status, social perception than about romantic exclusivity. A jealous man wasn't one who feared losing love, but one who feared losing honor. Strange, right? Roman jealousy, power, not passion. Romans linked jealousy with property, status, household control. A Roman man could be devastated if his reputation was damaged, even if he didn't love the person involved. For Romans, jealousy equaled threat to identity. Egyptian jealousy, emotional but gentle. Egyptians show the most relatable form of jealousy. Their stories speak of longing, insecurity, fear of losing connection, heartbreak. But their culture softened jealousy with poetry, communication, symbolic gifts. They expressed emotion, not violence. Mesopotamian jealousy, divine and human. In Mesopotamian stories, even gods get jealous. Ishtar, the goddess of both love and war, demonstrates how deeply desire and jealousy were intertwined. To them, jealousy wasn't weakness. It was evidence of emotional depth. The economics of ancient intimacy. Here's a surprising truth. Love shaped economies. Not love as emotion, but the institutions built around it. Let's explore how. Marriage, it was wealth transfer. In almost every ancient society, marriage moved. Land, livestock, jewelry, property, inheritance rights. Marriage was an economic engine. Divorce equals redistribution. Egyptians divorced easily, but fairly. Property was split. Children were protected. Financial rights were respected. This fairness made Egypt surprisingly modern. Fertility equals workforce. In agricultural societies, more children equals more workers. More workers equals more food. More food equals more stability. So fertility wasn't personal. It was economic strategy. Emotional labor equals social capital. Ancient women were the emotional anchors of families. Their emotional intelligence prevented conflict, preserved alliances, calmed households, protected peace. Love had economic value. An emotionally stable home created economic stability. Fact: modern economies still overlook. Body image. How ancient civilizations saw beauty beyond the physical. We think body positivity is modern, but ancient people had incredibly mature mindsets about beauty. Let's explore. Egypt, beauty equals cleanliness plus harmony. Egyptians valued. Hygiene, fragrances, balance in features, inner calm, emotional warmth. You didn't have to look perfect. You had to embody harmony. Greece, beauty equals proportion. The Greeks weren't obsessed with perfection. They were obsessed with mathematical balance. They believed a well-shaped mind, a well-shaped heart, and a well-shaped body reflected the same universal harmony. India, beauty equals spirit. Indian culture saw beauty as confidence, serenity, kindness, spiritual glow. Physical form was secondary to inner light. Mesopotamia, beauty equals status plus health. A healthy, well-kept body meant you. lived well, ate well, were cared for, had social support. Beauty was reassurance. The dark side of power. How intimacy was used to control society. Power and desire often intersected in the ancient world, safely, symbolically, politically. Here's how. Kings used marriage to command loyalty. A king could marry his daughter to a rival, adopt an heir, form alliances through weddings. Intimacy became diplomacy. Religious leaders used ritual to maintain order. Clergy across civilizations, Egypt, Babylon, India, used symbolic intimacy rituals to unite communities, reassure people, calm fear during drought, renew spiritual confidence. It wasn't physical, it was psychological. Rulers used romance to control heirs. Heirs were controlled through marriage restrictions, inheritance rules, arranged alliances, control of desire equals control of power. The last strange beliefs about love and life. Let's close with some of the most unusual, fascinating PG-13 historical beliefs. Greeks believed the heart could literally heat up from love. They thought chest warmth meant destiny, emotional truth, divine sign, a poetic but charming belief. Egyptians thought tears purified the soul. Crying over someone you love made your soul lighter. They believed sorrow washes the heart. Romans saw dreams as love letters from fate. If you dreamt of someone repeatedly, fate was reminding you of unfinished destiny. Babylonians thought people in love had stronger spirits. Love increased spiritual force, emotional empowerment. Beautiful, right? The final truth. What ancient sexuality really teaches us today. After words of countless civilizations and thousands of years of emotional history, there is one truth. Ancient sexuality was never about wildness, chaos, scandal, entertainment. No, it was about life, survival, family, identity, emotion, spirituality, community. Ancient people believed love and desire were powerful, transformative, dangerous, healing, unifying, divine. Not something to be ashamed of, but something to understand deeply. And their message to the modern world? Love is bigger than you think. Desire is older than you know. Connection is sacred. Treat it carefully. That is the real story. Not the sensationalized version, not the filtered version, but the human version. Before you drift away, before sleep takes over, do one thing for this channel. Like this video. Subscribe for more weird history and sleep documentaries. Comment. Do a part 2 if you learned something new. Share this with someone who loves ancient mysteries. You'll get more sleep videos, more ancient history, more weird facts, more soothing storytelling, more cinematic calm narration. And together, we'll explore the past in a way that feels alive.